So I just want to start this morning by letting people know that some of you online don't know that we had a Sangha member who had a fainting episode in the Zendo this morning, and he's okay. So just want everyone to know he was able to talk and laugh and make coherent sentences, and he went with the EMTs just to make sure everything was okay, but there was no emergency happening. So I have one Dharma teacher who says, anything can happen at any time, but we never know. And today we are entering into the beginning of our 3-day sesshin, which is the culmination of this almost month-long exploration on finding true refuge and living a life of vow. And tonight we'll be doing the full moon ceremony, which is sort of a culmination of the teachings that we've been exploring. The full moon ceremony was a ritual that the Buddha did with his Sangha, his community. It was a gathering of the community to reflect on one's behavior, align with the lineage, with the ancestors, and commit or recommit to a life of vow. This was a ritual that was meant to help us understand how to live together well. And maybe many moments in history feel like this, but this one feels particularly poignant, pertinent, potent, as a time that we need this kind of teaching. So over these next 3 days, I'm going to be giving talks about one of my favorite texts. It's called the Eihei Koso Hotsuganmon, which we'll be chanting today at noon, and I'll be talking about each morning. The Eihei Koso Hotsuganmon, in many ways, is another way of saying all of the teachings that we've been studying together. It is Eihei is Eihei Dogen, and the Eihei Koso Hotsuganmon is translated as Dogen's personal vow, sometimes described as his personal statement of faith. You may remember that the theme of refuge is very central in Dogen's teachings. Remember at the very beginning, I talked about how Dogen, who wrote extensively about the importance of shikantaza and sitting in meditation, as he was approaching his own death, he circumambulated, chanting, Namu Kie Butsu, Namu Kie Ho, Namu Kie So. I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in Dharma. I take refuge in Sangha. And as you'll see in the ceremony this evening, when we recite the 16 Bodhisattva precepts that are Dogen's unique configuration of these precepts, ethical ways of living together well, that he begins and ends with refuge. So it's very central to his teaching. Dogen wrote the Eihei Koso Hotsuganmon in 1247 when he was 47 years old. He had been practicing for some time, and it was a very difficult time in Japan. There was a lot of turmoil there as well. He was struggling to establish what would later become his monastery, Eihei. So I will invite you to listen to the words of the text, and also the same instruction really for this evening in the ceremony with what we might call the mind of Zazen. And the invitation, especially on this first day of our sesshin together, is to really sort of let the mind settle into the body. It doesn't mean your mind won't be busy. For most of us, when we are moving pretty quickly in our lives and we come to a fast stop, which may be true for some of you arriving here, there's a little shimmy, right? So there may be a little shimmy in your body, in your heart, in your mind. And you may notice a lot of mental activity. And as Rebecca spoke to so beautifully last night, we don't need to try to stop our thoughts, and certainly we don't need to shoot them. We are taking a posture that allows us, as she described, to meet each moment with a quality of stability, of poise, of receptivity, of curiosity, but not so much curiosity about the story, but curiosity in a sense of wondering, what is this? I sometimes use myself in my own mind the question or the phrase, hello, who are you? Right? Something arises, a pain in the body, a strong wave of emotion, a repeated thought. Our practice is not to grab on and get swept away in the content, but also with no need to reject or tighten or push anything away. Can we find our seat? Can we find our balance again and again right here? Here. This is where we always enter. Not, as Rebecca spoke about, in that last sesshin we sat, or that last event that was so wonderful, reaching for that, and not in some idea of how we think it's supposed to be, but this moment. Hello, who are you? With that. So I'll read the first paragraph of the Eihei Koso Hotsuganmon, and then just riff a little bit on this. We vow with all beings from this life on throughout countless lives to hear the true Dharma, that upon hearing it, no doubt will arise in us, nor will we lack in faith, that upon meeting it, we shall renounce worldly affairs and maintain the Buddha Dharma, and that in doing so, the great earth and all living beings together will attain the Buddha way. I love this text. So, we vow with all beings from this life on throughout countless lives to hear the true Dharma, The whole teaching is in the first word. We. This is Dogen's personal vow. Does he start with no? He doesn't say me, I, Dogen Zenji. He says we. We vow with all beings. This is not a directive. He's not telling us what we should do. It's a description. When we vow with all beings. That's how vowing happens. So this is where Dogen begins. This is where he enters. In this practice, we sit at the intersection of the individual, the particular, the relative, the dual, the differentiated, the unique, and the collective, the universal, the interdependent, the absolute. And this is not an easy place to sit because we have a mind, Suzuki Roshi called the gaining mind. I sometimes think of it just as the binary mind, the mind that wants this or that, I or we. Which is it? This is a way of talking about a very old teaching that comes from one of our ancestors who I've, I think, referred to before, Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna literally is a name that means the king of the sea serpents. Nagarjuna supposedly went down under the sea and rescued the great teachings on emptiness from the king of the sea serpents. The sea serpents were protecting these teachings until we up here were ready to hear them. And apparently it was time, so Nagarjuna went down and rescued them and then offered these teachings. There's some texts that describe when the teachings of emptiness were first offered that people like passed out. They were so freaked out by hearing them. Nagarjuna has a second teaching which is a little bit less known, but one of my favorites, called the teaching of the two truths, the relative and the absolute. And the most important thing to know about these two truths is that, again, quoting Suzuki Roshi, they really are not one, not two. They go together. So we might say at the relative level, we feel separate. We feel like a separate, solid I, me, and mine. Don't we? And the absolute truth is we're not. We actually are inextricably interconnected. But both things are true. It's not that the interconnectedness is a better truth or a deeper truth. It's one we don't tend to see or feel or understand very deeply, though we have a chance to really understand in a visceral way that teaching as we sit together, as we begin to settle in and sink down from the mind into the immediacy, the felt sense of our direct experience. So at the essence of what it is that we confess at the full moon ceremony is not that we feel separate, but that we believe we are separate. It's okay to feel it. You feel it and you say, ouch. And sometimes being separate is good, right? Sometimes being separate means you take your shoes and not somebody else's when you leave the hall, right? It's a classic example but we confess all of the ways in which we believe our separateness, because it's out of that separateness that we divide, we do harm. It's the source of so much of the misery and pain that we see in the world today. And so, as we understand that there is a world out there on fire, so much surus, it's the Yiddish word, we want to understand that what we're doing here is important also. That we are doing our best to be in the fire, to sit in the middle of that original wound. Not the separation, but the believing it. We vow with all beings, from this life on throughout countless lives. We don't take this vow once. The full moon ceremony is recognition of that. Originally it was the brightest night and the darkest night. So it was twice a month. They didn't have months back then. It was just the lunar cycle. So the darkest night, new moon, brightest night, full moon. Ongoingly we vow. Now, now, now. Mm-hmm. And what do we vow ongoingly? To hear the true Dharma. Remember that image of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, over there with the 1,000 hands and eyes, who hears the cries of the world. Right? And the punchline of that koan, that story, was that there are hands and eyes throughout the body. So as we're practicing, sitting, walking, eating, we're practicing with the whole body. We're learning to listen with the whole body. There's a difference, between hearing and listening. Hearing, if we have functioning ears, not everyone does, but if we do, hearing is something that happens automatically. Same for all of the sense doors. We look, we see. A sound happens, we hear. A smell happens, we smell, like that. So I think what Dogen is pointing to here is not just that automatic kind of hearing, but actually listening. And listening is something different. Listening asks us to bring a quality of attention to what's happening. This is one of my favorite stories about that. It's from one of our more recent ancestors, Charlotte Joko Beck. She, before she became a Zen teacher, she was a pianist. And here's her description of this process of hearing and listening. She says, many years ago, I was a piano major at Oberlin College, Oberlin Conservatory. I was a very good student. Not outstanding, but very good. And I really wanted to study with the one teacher who undoubtedly was the best. He'd take ordinary students and turn them into fabulous pianists. Well, finally, I got my chance to study with the teacher. When I came in for my lesson, I found that he taught with 2 pianos. He didn't even say hello. He just sat down at his piano and he played 5 notes, and then he said, "You do it." I was supposed to play it just the way he had played it. So I played it, and he said, "Nope." He played it again, and I played it again, and again he said, nope. Well, we had an hour of that, and each time he said, no. Now, I had thought I was pretty good. I'd played soloist in little symphony orchestras, yet we did this for 3 months, and I cried most of those 3 months. And then one day, at the end of 3 months, I played it, and he said, good. What had happened? I had the same set of ears I started with. Nothing had happened to my ears. What I was playing was not technically difficult. What happened was that I had learned to listen for the first time. I had learned to pay attention. He said, if you can hear it, you can play it. That was why he was a great teacher. He taught his students to pay attention. After working with him, they really listened. When you can hear it, you can play it. And beautiful, finished pianists came out of his studio. So this is meditation instruction. We are learning to listen. We're learning to listen inwardly, outwardly. We're learning to pay attention with great care, great tenderness. Because as we listen, we metabolize all of what hasn't been listened to. All of the parts that have been pushed away, ignored, overlooked, that we were too busy to pay attention to. So we vow with all beings, from this life on throughout countless lives, to hear the true Dharma. We haven't gotten very far, have we? To hear the true Dharma, that upon hearing it, no doubt will arise in us, nor will we lack in faith. This sentence has been sticking with me because very early on, I hope you're there, Mary. Mary asked, who's online, asked a question about doubt. She said, I thought doubt was good. That's what we think, right? Doubting, questioning, wondering. So I want to make, again, a distinction between what I would think of as true doubt. Doubt that comes from a, hello, who are you? A kind of questioning, wondering doubt. A beginner's mind doubt. A doubt that doesn't know and wants to know. And what we might call a kind of skeptical or cynical doubt. And you might notice some of this as you sit. I often do. Cynical doubt is the doubt that is kind of masquerading as real doubt. And what it's really doing is saying, I don't know. But I don't know means, actually, I think I do know, and it pretty much sucks. Like, I think it's going to go badly. It's got a false doubt with a negative valence to it. And it keeps us from our ability to really touch our experience in a direct way. So you don't have to yell at your cynical doubt, just like anything else that arises. Pain in your knees, pain in your heart, busy mind. You meet it. You take your seat and you allow what's arising to be the place that you enter, to be the doorway for you to discover here, now, over and over. And as we do this, we cultivate a greater and greater ability to listen with a quality of refinement, of sensitivity, that we often don't have a chance to do when we're in the world and things are moving fast and we're moving fast. So we have doubt and we have faith. Faith, like doubt, can be easily misunderstood. So by faith, we don't mean blind faith, like I just believe it because somebody told me. Faith in Pali is Shraddha. It is the first of what are called the 7 factors of enlightenment. It's the entry point of the path. We enter the path because something touches us. That's a flicker of faith. Something wakes up inside. And as we practice, as we sit together, as we will for these long hours over the next few days, that faith begins to deepen. So that those things that maybe I said or you heard in a Dharma talk or in a book or in a podcast someplace, those teachings land here. You take them in and reflect on them in terms of your own direct experience, and ultimately, they're in your bones, they're in your flesh, they're yours. You might be interested to know that there is the proximate cause of faith. I have to say a moment about proximate cause. Proximate cause in Buddhism, you know, we say everything, every moment of now that we're invited to enter comes together based on myriad causes and conditions. It's like a big tangle of roots. Now, like that. And even though there are all of these causes and conditions, remember this is why you are responsible but not to blame for your karma, because it's so complex. And every moment of experience also has what's called a proximate cause. It means the thing just before it. Does anybody know what the proximate cause of faith is? Bless you. The proximate cause of faith is suffering. Totally surprising. You would think that faith comes out of, having a good time. Things are going well, but no, that's not faith. Faith comes from sitting in the dukkha. Faith comes from finding out that, as Pema Chodron says, it's all workable. And you can hear me say that till the cows come home. But this is yours to discover for yourself. We vow with all beings from this life on throughout countless lives to hear the true Dharma, that upon hearing it, no doubt, cynical doubt, will arise in us, nor will we lack in faith. That upon meeting it, we shall renounce worldly affairs and maintain the Buddha Dharma, and that in doing so, the great earth and all living beings together will attain the Buddha way. So I just want to say one note on renouncing worldly affairs. When you come on retreat, when you come to sesshin, you are letting go of some things, like maybe getting up at a reasonable hour, or eating what you want, or following your own schedule. So there is a degree of renunciation in this. But fundamentally, what we're talking about as renunciation is not about giving up things, it's about giving up attitudes. And this is what I was just speaking about. These binaries that we fall into, the unexplored, unexamined beliefs and assumptions that we carry. This is what we renounce. And renouncing doesn't mean get out of here. Renouncing means, oh, hello, who are you? We see it for what it is rather than it having us by our throats. And as we do this, we don't wake up. Everything wakes up, right? the great earth and all living beings together. This is how it happens. Yeah? So the second paragraph, which I'll read, is really a kind of preview of the ceremony tonight, so you can hear it in that way. Although our past evil karma has greatly accumulated, we will be confessing our karma tonight as we did this morning in service. Although our past evil karma has greatly accumulated, indeed, being the cause and conditions of obstacles in practicing the way, may all Buddhas and ancestors who have attained the Buddha way be compassionate to us and free us from karmic effects, allowing us to practice the way without hindrance. May they share with us their compassion, which fills the boundless universe with the virtue of their enlightenment and teachings. When we enter into this practice, when we say, yes, I'm willing to sit right here, 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 I'm willing to do my best to watch all of the ways the mind is grasping after and pushing away. I'm willing to see all of the ways that I assume and judge and believe and hold on to. I'm willing to sit in the middle of my ancient twisted karma when we take that vow, when we practice that way, which it may not feel like this about 3 o'clock this afternoon, but this is what we're doing together. When we practice together in this way, what comes forward? May all Buddhas and ancestors who have attained the Buddha way be compassionate to us and free us from karmic effects, allowing us to practice the way without hindrance. May they share with us their compassion, which fills the boundless universe. Just as our ancient twisted karma goes back and back and back, the compassion that you are receiving as you sit here, each of us, in these little cauldrons, you can have faith, growing faith, that all of the Buddhas and ancestors are showering you with boundless compassion. This is unconditional compassion. It may take you a little while to hear them, feel them, but they're here. And just like the story I told the other day, they want us to be free. They want us to metabolize our karma for the benefit of the great earth and all living beings. All right, one last story. This is a story about compassion. Many of you know that we sometimes talk about these two wings of the bird in Buddhist practice of wisdom and compassion. The word compassion means calm is with and passion is to suffer. So compassion is to suffer with. It's not to pity. It's not to reject or turn away. It's to be right there. And this is our practice as well. As we sit in our cauldron, never knowing, moment to moment, what's going to arise, doing our best to meet it. Can we meet it with compassion? Can we sit side by side with what's here? I have two stories. I have to decide which one to tell. Because yesterday I was sitting on that floor and I felt it on my knees. So I'm not going to run really late today. That's my compassion for you. All right. This is a story about one of our Zen ancestors whose name was Jiaozhou. Jiaozhou was a great Zen master. And one day he fell down into a snowbank. I imagine he fell down maybe backwards and he couldn't get up. Maybe it was a deep snowbank. So he was in this snowbank and he was shouting, "Help!" Remember, I told the story about me shouting, "Help!" You can do this too. When you're in those moments of difficulty, help, and know that compassion. All the Buddhas and ancestors are showering you. They're here. They're hearing your cries. In this story, Jiaozhou shouts, "Help!" And one of his students, another monk, hears him, and he comes along, and he lies down right next to him in the snow. And Jiaozhou gets up and walks away. This is instruction for what compassion looks like. This is instruction for not giving advice, not trying to fix, not looking down upon, not running the other direction and pretending you're not hearing the cries. What does it mean to lie down next to? Now, now, now. To keep meeting your moments with this boundless compassion that's being offered to you, offered to we. In this sea of interconnectedness, that compassion is always here waiting. So in the same way that you practice paying attention with care, with kindness, with precision, even if you're exhausted and fuzzy-headed, then you're present with being exhausted and fuzzy-headed, right? And you trust that this being with, this is the instruction I give myself all the time. This is what compassion means, being with. What does it mean to be with this breath? This wave of sadness, this pain in my shoulder. What does it mean to be with, to meet this moment? And trust that all beings, all of the Buddhas and ancestors are here, are listening, are paying attention, are meeting us. Tonight, when we do the full moon ceremony, I just want to invite you to feel the presence of all of those ancestors. The hundreds, thousands of people across time, across place, across culture, across language, who have done this very same ritual, who, like us, have committed themselves to entering a path of confessing our karma, of meeting our moments with compassion for the benefit of the great earth and all living beings. This is what it means to find true refuge. This is how together we create a world that we want to be part of. So I thank you in advance for your efforts throughout today. And look forward to all of us engaging in this beautiful ancient ceremony together as a commitment of our wish to be a part of alleviating suffering, ours, each other's, the world's. Thank you very much.